I found a hidden door in my new apartment, but it wasn't supposed to be there. I moved into my new apartment about 2 months ago, and honestly, it felt like winning the lottery at first. Cheap rent, spacious rooms, and a view that, if you ignored the crumbling buildings below, almost looked picturesque. The building itself is old over 100 years, according to the listing. Brick facade, narrow hallways, creaky staircases that make you question whether they've been inspected in the last decade. But I've always liked old places. They have character, they've seen things. When I met the landlord, Mr. Kane, I got this strange first impression I couldn't quite pin down. He's tall but slightly hunched, with these watery blue eyes that never seem to blink enough. He speaks slowly, like he's measuring each word before letting it out. He showed me the apartment in silence for most of the tour. No pushy sales pitch, no small talk. Just the occasional, "This is the living room," or "The windows stick sometimes." When we reached the bedroom, I noticed something odd immediately. One wall, the one beside the closet, looked different. Same beige paint as the others, but the texture was smoother. Almost like new plaster covering something up. I stepped toward it, but before I could say anything, Mr. Kane gestured toward the window and started talking about how much light the room gets in the mornings. I let it go. The first couple of weeks were normal enough. I work late hours, so most nights I'd come home, heat up leftovers, scroll on my phone until my eyes hurt, and crash. The noises were just part of the old building charm. Creaking floorboards above me, the distant slam of the front door when someone came home late, the radiator making its hollow knocking sounds when it kicked in. But after a while, I noticed something strange. The wall next to my closet, the one I'd been curious about during the tour, didn't quite match the rest. At certain times of day, the light from the window would hit it just right, and I could see faint lines, straight, vertical lines. One night, I ran my hand along it. The surface was smoother than the other walls, and my fingers caught on a faint groove. When I stepped back, I realized it was a rectangle, almost exactly the size and shape of a door. I told myself it was nothing. Old buildings get weird remodels all the time. Maybe it had been a second closet or a hallway that was sealed off, but it started bothering me. About 3 weeks in, I woke up to a noise. At first, I thought it was part of a dream. But the sound came again, 3 soft, deliberate taps. I checked my phone. To 31 a.m. The sound stopped as soon as I sat up. I stayed awake for nearly an hour, waiting for it to start again, but it didn't. The next night, it did. Same time, same 3 taps. This time, I pressed my ear against the wall. At first, nothing. Then faintly I heard it. Breathing. Slow, steady breathing, like someone was on the other side, asleep. I backed away and didn't touch the wall again for days. But then, 2 mornings later, I came home from work to find something that made my skin crawl. A deep scratch now ran along the outline of the hidden door. Not a surface scratch, this was down through the paint and plaster, like something sharp had been dragged along it. It hadn't been there the day before. I called Mr. Kane, half joking about my haunted wall. There was a pause before he said, in that slow voice of his, "You're on the 3rd floor, right? Don't go messing with that wall. It's better if it stays closed." I laughed and asked why. Another pause. "Some things are better left alone." That night, I shoved my dresser against the wall. The tapping still came. Over the next week, it changed. No longer just 3 taps. Sometimes it was fast and irregular, like something impatient. Other times, so slow I could almost convince myself it was the building settling. Then the whispering started. It happened at 3:15 a.m., 4 nights ago. I woke up to a faint voice. At first, I thought it was coming from the hallway, but when I pressed my ear to the wall, I could make it out. "Please." I froze. When I checked the next morning, my dresser had been moved about 2 inches away from the wall. I live alone. Last night was the worst. The tapping started around midnight and didn't stop. It got faster and faster until it sounded like frantic knocking. Then silence. Then 3 slow, deliberate knocks, followed by a voice, clear and low. "Let me out. I haven't slept." And tonight, as I write this, there's a new sound. Something heavy sliding across the floor, from inside the wall. I didn't sleep after hearing that voice. I didn't even lie down. I just sat in my living room with every light on, listening to the faint hum of my fridge, waiting for the sun to rise. By the time the first weak light spilled through the blinds, I'd made a decision. I wasn't going to live like this. Either I found out what was behind that wall, or I moved out no matter how much breaking the lease cost me. I started with Google. I searched my building's address, then narrowed it to history, crime, missing persons. Most of what I found was boring real estate listings from over the years, renovation permits, a blurry black and white photo from the 1930s showing the building surrounded by empty lots. But buried in the local archives, I found a name, Kane and Sons Boarding House, my landlord's last name. The article was dated 1948. It mentioned the boarding house being shut down after a string of disappearances that police failed to solve. Several tenants, all young men between 20 and 30, had vanished without a trace over the course of 6 months. No arrests, no leads, just gone. I sat there staring at the article until my coffee went cold. There was no photo of the original owner, but I didn't need one to feel a sick suspicion forming in my head. I decided I'd talk to Mr. Kane directly. He was in the lobby when I came home that evening, sorting through the mail. I asked, as casually as I could, "Hey, do you know anything about the old history of this building?" His watery blue eyes flicked up to mine, unblinking. "What kind of history?" "You know, before it was apartments. I read something about it being a boarding house." He paused, fingers resting on an envelope. "A lot of old buildings were boarding houses. People come and go." Then, almost under his breath, "Some never leave." I laughed nervously, but he didn't laugh back. That night, I moved the dresser away from the wall. I told myself I wasn't going to open it, just take a closer look. Up close, I could see the outline more clearly now. The scratch along the edge had deepened, like whatever had made it had kept working at it over the past few days. The plaster felt soft in spots, crumbly. I tapped it. It sounded hollow. The tapping didn't come that night. Instead, at 3 a.m., I woke up to a sound like breathing. Not faint this time, not muffled. Right behind the wall. Then a whisper, so close I could feel it against my ear even though I was across the room. "Hurry." The next day, I went to the hardware store. I bought a pry bar and a small hammer, telling the clerk I was doing some home repairs. By the time I got home, it was already dark. I sat with the tools beside me for hours, trying to convince myself this was a bad idea. But at 2:15 a.m., the tapping started again. Slow, steady, almost patient. I grabbed the pry bar. The first hit sent a fine puff of plaster dust into the air. The second broke through entirely, revealing rotten wood beneath. I kept going. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I might faint. After 10 minutes, I had pulled away enough plaster to reveal the outline of a small wooden door about chest high, with a tarnished brass handle. The wood was old, splintered in places, but the handle was shiny, as if someone had polished it recently. I reached for it, and froze. From behind the door came a sound like something heavy being dragged slowly across the floor. Then, silence. I should have stopped. I should have covered it back up. But instead, I turned the handle. It moved easily, without a creak. The door opened into darkness. The air that rushed out was colder than the rest of the apartment and smelled faintly metallic, like old coins or blood. I turned on my phone's flashlight and leaned in. It wasn't a closet. It was a narrow hallway, no more than 3 feet wide, lined with peeling wallpaper. The floorboards were warped, and the end of the hallway was swallowed in shadow. I stepped inside. The air felt heavier the further I went. Every step made the boards groan, and the sound echoed like I was in a much larger space than the hallway suggested. Halfway down, I saw something scratched into the wallpaper. Letters, words, "Don't trust Kane." My phone buzzed in my hand, making me almost drop it. It was a text from an unknown number. It said, "Get out." Before I could react, my flashlight flickered. For half a second, I saw a shape at the far end of the hallway. Tall, thin, still. The light came back on. The hallway was empty. But now, I could hear something. Footsteps, coming closer. I turned and ran back toward the hidden door, slamming it shut behind me. The tapping hasn't stopped since. It's been 3 days. I haven't left my apartment. And last night, I woke up to find a note slipped under my bedroom door. In neat, old-fashioned handwriting, it said, "Your turn." The note didn't make sense at first. Your turn. My turn for what? It sat on my kitchen table all morning while I paced the apartment. Every time I looked at it, I noticed new details. The paper wasn't standard notebook paper, it was thick, slightly yellowed. The ink wasn't ballpoint, it looked like it had been written with a fountain pen. Old, like everything else in this building. Around noon, I decided I couldn't take the tapping anymore. It hadn't stopped since I slammed the door shut in that hallway. Slow, deliberate. 3 taps, pause, 3 taps again, like it was keeping time. I pressed my ear to the wall. No breathing this time, no whispering, just that steady rhythm. I texted my friend Mike. Me. You busy? Mike. Why? Me. Need help with something at my place. Weird repair issue. Mike. Define weird. Me. Will explain when you get here. He said he'd swing by after work. When he arrived, I felt almost stupid telling him about the hidden door, the hallway, the note. But instead of laughing, he frowned. You should have told me sooner, he said. This building's bad news. I asked what he meant. Turns out, Mike grew up a few blocks from here. His grandfather used to tell him stories about the Kane house. Apparently, people had been disappearing from here for decades long after the original owner supposedly died. Mike wanted to see the hallway for himself. We moved the dresser again, cleared away the loose plaster, and there it was, the little wooden door with its polished handle. The tapping stopped the second we uncovered it. Mike reached for the handle, but I grabbed his wrist. Don't, I said. He smirked. What, you think it's haunted? I didn't answer. Instead, I told him about the shape I'd seen. The footsteps. The warning on the wallpaper. That's when he got serious. We opened it anyway. The cold air rushed out again, stronger this time, smelling even more metallic. My phone's flashlight barely cut through the darkness. The hallway looked the same as before, peeling wallpaper, warped floorboards, but now there were more scratches in the walls. Not words this time. Claw marks. Mike stepped inside. Feels longer than it looks from outside, he said. I stayed by the doorway, scanning the shadows. Halfway down, Mike stopped. Dude, there's a door here. I moved closer, and sure enough, at the end of the hallway was another door, full size this time, with heavy iron hinges and no handle. Something was written on it in red. Only one at a time. Before we could react, the door behind us, the one to my bedroom, slammed shut. My flashlight flickered. The sound started again. Not tapping this time. Footsteps. Heavy, slow, coming from the other side of the iron door. Mike swore under his breath and started pulling at the bedroom side door. It wouldn't budge. The footsteps got louder. I pounded on the plaster. Let us out. Something answered, not with words, but with a low, drawn-out groan that made my chest vibrate. Then the iron door began to open. Just an inch at first, but enough for cold air to pour through. My flashlight flickered again, and for a split second, I saw an eye staring at us through the gap. Wide, pale, and blinking. Mike shoved me toward the bedroom door. Push with me. We slammed into it together, again and again, until suddenly it gave way and we spilled into my room. The small door shut itself behind us. The tapping started again immediately. Mike didn't stick around. He told me I should move out tonight, offered to help me pack, but I couldn't. When I called the landlord to break my lease, he just laughed. The room's chosen you now, he said. Running won't help. That was 2 days ago. I've tried sleeping at hotels, but I keep waking up at 3 a.m. no matter where I am. And when I open my eyes, I hear it. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps again. This morning, there was another note under my door. This one said, midnight. Don't make us come get you. I didn't need an alarm to wake up at midnight. The tapping made sure of that. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. Perfectly spaced, perfectly timed, like it had been counting down all day. I sat up in bed and stared at the dresser. Behind it was the door. Behind the door was them. The note was still on my nightstand. Midnight. Don't make us come get you. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise. The worst part, I wasn't even sure anymore if this was happening outside me or inside me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the hallway. Even when I was awake, I could smell that metallic, freezing air. Sometimes I thought I heard whispers, but when I tried to listen, they turned into distant, dry laughter. I got dressed slowly, not because I wanted to, but because some part of me knew resistance wasn't an option anymore. Mike wasn't answering my calls. My landlord wasn't answering either. It was just me. I moved the dresser aside. The wall had changed again. The plaster was gone entirely now, as if something had been peeling it away from the inside. The little wooden door stood bare against the wall. The handle gleamed in the dim light, like it had just been polished. The tapping stopped. I put my hand on the handle. It felt warm. I didn't even need to turn it. The door opened by itself. Cold air rushed out and wrapped around me like a hand. The hallway looked the same as before, but now the peeling wallpaper seemed to move like there was something breathing beneath it. I stepped inside. The door shut behind me with a click. The warped floorboards groaned under my weight. Every step echoed strangely, like I was walking inside a much larger structure than what should have fit between the walls of my apartment. Somewhere ahead, faintly, a voice called my name. It was a woman's voice this time, soft, almost pleading. Please, hurry. I followed it. Halfway down, I passed the old warning scratched into the wall, "Don't trust Kane." The letters looked fresher now, almost wet. The iron door at the end of the hallway was wide open. Beyond it was darkness. Not the kind of darkness where your eyes adjust. The kind that feels solid, like a wall. The voice called again, closer now. "Please, I can't hold it back much longer." I stepped over the threshold. The floor vanished beneath me. I landed hard on cold concrete. My phone flashlight flickered on, and I saw that I was in a massive underground chamber. The walls were made of brick, damp and crumbling. Pipes ran along the ceiling, dripping rust-colored water. But it wasn't the room that made my stomach turn. It was what was hanging from the walls. People, dozens of them. Their eyes were open but blank, their mouths moving silently. Each one was bound by something that wasn't rope-thick, sinewy cords that pulsed faintly, like veins. In the center of the room was Mr. Kane. Only, it wasn't really him. His body was impossibly thin, stretched taller than any human should be, his skin pulled tight over sharp bones. His face was longer, the mouth wider, the teeth too many. He smiled when he saw me. "Finally," he said, in a voice that wasn't just one voice. It was dozens, layered, some male, some female, all speaking in perfect unison. "The room chooses carefully. You're the first in years to answer without being taken." I couldn't move. "What is this?" I asked, my voice barely working. "This is home," he said. "For us. For you." Behind him, the people on the walls started, whispering in unison. I couldn't make out the words at first until I realized they were all saying the same thing. "Join. Join. Join." Kane stepped toward me. The floor seemed to ripple under his feet. "One at a time," he said. "That's the rule. The one who enters must take the place of the one who leaves." Before I could react, he reached into the cords binding one of the hanging people and pulled. The man dropped to the floor, gasping. His skin was pale, his eyes sunken, but he was alive. Kane turned to me. "Your turn." The cords shot toward me like snakes. I ran. I didn't think about where, just away. My flashlight beam shook wildly across the walls, revealing tunnels leading in every direction. I chose one at random. The tunnels didn't make sense. They twisted and turned, some sloping upward, some downward, but no matter how far I ran, the air stayed freezing. And then, the tapping started again. 3 taps. Pause. 3 taps. But this time, it wasn't coming from behind me. It was coming from ahead. I slowed down, heart pounding. At the end of the tunnel, there was another small wooden door just like the one in my bedroom wall. The handle gleamed in the dark. I reached for it. When I opened it, I stepped into my apartment. Everything looked normal. The lights were on. The coffee cup I'd left in the sink was still there. For a second, I thought I'd escaped. Then I saw it. The dresser was back in place. The wall looked untouched, no cracks, no plaster missing. But from behind it, I could hear breathing. And then, a whisper. "Your turn's over. You brought us another." The tapping hasn't stopped since. And now, sometimes, it comes from inside my bedroom.